Hi, everybody. I'm glad you're here. And I think we have some fun stuff to look through today and tonight, wherever you may be at this time of day. So let's take a few breaths anyway, just to start, with no special way of breathing, just loving the inhalation that we get to have right now and letting the exhalation be effortless. And a few more of those, sort of feeling that the oxygen is fanning the embers of our energy body and making it glow from the tip of our toes to the crown of our head, from the ends of our fingertips throughout the whole body. You could feel yourself glowing as you breathe oxygen to ignite your energy body. Good. So, and also before we start looking at the slide presentation, let's do something for our posture. We did a lot on posture the first time, and we're going to continue with the theme of alignment very much, but we'll try to remember what we learned last time, which was one of the things we learned was about promoting the optimal position of our head and neck over the chest, okay? And we did something called opening the gate of the jade pillow, which I learned from a student who is a student of this guy, Rick Barrett. And I always like to credit people as much as possible. So we're going to take our index finger or our middle finger and find at the base of the skull a slight protrusion, and that's called the jade pillow. And I like that because jade pillow is two things that should be not the same, something very hard and something soft. So as you press that little bump, and you may not feel that you have one, but just go ahead and push your occiput or the base of your skull toward the index finger, and your brainstem, your medulla oblongata, is going to just lengthen. And you're bringing your chin in towards your throat. Good. Then we can take our index finger to the top of the head, and usually many of us find instead of a protrusion, a little indentation. This is the posterior fontanelle, and we're going to go ahead and press that up. We're reaching with it. And in this way, we're working with our erector spinae, the muscles which lengthen the vertebral processes, and we're bringing the chin toward the throat, and just press, bring that chin in. Good. Now, even more, we'll interlace our hands, press them forward, bring our arms up, and move our ribs from side to side. We're going to be doing a lot of breathing awareness, and between the ribs are the intercostals, those muscles which hold the ribs together, but they get very, very tough, very, very tight. So as we move over to my right, your left, or whichever, you're going to breathe into your ribs. Keep your scapula, your shoulder blades towards your spine, and open up those ribs. Now, when we come back, we're going to squeeze our navel toward our spine. You're going to use that very deep abdominal muscle to come up, not your back. Exhale, and I'm going to hiss. We're going to do this later too. Go. Good. Wonderful. And we'll come over this way and open up the ribs on the other side. And just take a moment, keep your shoulder blades towards your spine, breathing in. And on you exhale, no back muscle, and use those abdominals to pull that tree that's bending in the wind back to center. Good. Now we'll place the hands behind the head, and we're going to expand the elbows wider and press the chest forward. Now we're opening the upper ribs and allowing them to have a little spaciousness as you inhale, squeezing the shoulder blades together. And then you're going to bring your ears over your shoulders, spread your fingers, and exhale your hands down. Good. And so now we're just going to take a few delicious inhalations while I get our slide presentation ready. Good. So here we are, Art of Breathing 2, second chapter. And this is Alex Gray, and he's got an amazing imagination for the energy body, which is a lot of what we're going to explore. And it is your pranic sheath. Sometimes in some mystical schools of yoga, it's called the Divya Deha, the divine body. And we all have this beautiful, beautiful energy body, and coming to know it and appreciate it and feed it or fuel it with our breathing is part of what we're up to. Here is a quote from a Siddha from the 12th century, Siddha Tirumular. And I like it, and there's a lot more from him we can hear from next week. But he said something that I want us to take in. The Lord is the light pulsating in my body as prana. If I know him not, who else will? So as we enter into the next hour together, or hour and a half, one of the most important things is our attitude toward the prana, or the breath that we're going to be experimenting with and moving around, and let it give us access to higher states of consciousness. But it's so important to approach the prana with the utmost reverence. And many times I hear from some students and who want to say that they're going to do this and that with their prana, and they're going to do these pranayamas, and then they're going to do these harsh things. And it's almost like it's very foolish to think that you're going to tell the supreme principle of the universe where to go and what to do. The most important thing is to enter into the whole relationship with reverence or humility. And that's going to be something that we continue to reinforce again and again. It will bring you into the higher states, the more joyful states, but it's so important not to think that we're going to, do it, Okay, so let's see what happens. Now, this is a repeat of something that we started with last week, and I might start with it each week because I want to reinforce it. This is another thing that happens when we study. We get an aphorism or a teaching and we think we know it, and then we want something more and novel. But this, if we could just deepen a little bit, teaches us a lot about prana and about our own being. So this is from the Prashna Upanishad, which is pretty much all about prana, and from the Upanishads, which are from the Vedas. And I'll read it to you again. Prana burns as fire and shines as the sun. Prana reigns as the cloud. Prana blows as the wind and crashes as thunder in the sky. Prana is the earth. Prana, this is important, is form and no form. Prana is immortality. So when we look at this and we just sort of take another look, we realize that embedded in this statement are the elements which are understood in the yogic idea of the subtle body. Okay, so they're not all in order precisely, but we have fire, which is the element of the Manipur chakra, the abdominal region. Rain, which is the water element, that's from our Svadhisthana, the second chakra. Blows is the wind, air element from your heart. You don't have to memorize these, just understand. We'll understand them better as we go forward. Crashes as thunder in the sky is a reference to ether, because ether is often represented by the sky. It is space. And the sound that we hear, it resonates in space. And that was considered to be ether, which is spaciousness itself. And then form and no form references the third eye. And this is important because when we focus on prana, we're able to focus on something which has form. It feels like breath, and it does come and go. There's a somatic feel, there's some form to it, but it's really quite formless. It's like pure water, which has no taste, no color, no odor, but it is so deliciously thirst quenching. Prana also is so wonderfully formless that it quenches the needs of our cells for fresh, new life. So the form and the no form is an important reason why prana is a good focal point for meditation, because it takes you from form to the experience of the formless. And it's just so wonderful. And I call that third eye in the, we're going to see in a moment what element that is. And then prana is immortality. Okay, so that's quite a claim. But here, if we look at, here's another Alex Gray depiction of the subtle body, and he has lit up the centers of consciousness we call chakras. And just for our like a map for us, the top crown is the Atman, the Sahasrar, and that is that's the immortality. The mind Then the third eye, there's in yoga ideas, the mind is an element, okay? These are increasingly gross as they go downward, as you see. Ether, which is your throat chakra, air, anahata, the heart chakra, fire, the Manipur chakra, water, svadhisthana, and ether, and earth, muladhara. And you can see that that what's happened here is there also another word for these elements are tattvas, and that they're becoming increasingly gross, okay? Now our job in a way is to enter into the fully into the gross and then ascend to the subtle. And that's what we're going to be doing. So I just wanted to outline my ambition tonight, which is we're going to be continuing maybe to deepen and expand our idea of alignment and what it means for us, you know, why in all of the yogic and meditation systems and Buddhist systems, the posture is so important. And we're going to figure out a little of that. Of course, we're going to be looking at prana in these texts, the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, a little in the Bhagavad Gita. We'll be doing more next week. Some in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, which I think you'll enjoy. We'll also be doing more next week. Some from the Vipassana practice of Thich Nhat Hanh, particularly. And we will then go through the 5 pranas and sub-pranas. And then we're going to experiment with tratak, which is the stabilizing of our gaze at the Shri Yantra, or I should say with the Shri Yantra, because you know I don't like to even say the word Shri Yantra without the respect of what it really is. And we're not going to cover all of our investigations of the Shri Yantra this day. We'll also do some next week. So this is our roadmap for the evening. So here we're talking about alignment, and we have a statement in the Bhagavad Gita where when Krishna is explaining meditation to Arjuna, one should hold one body, neck, and head erect in a straight line. And so I should have another translation is chest, neck, and head. Okay, so there's something very important about the alignment of the head over the heart, truly. But just thinking about it in terms of our brain stem, which is the medulla oblongata, if we go ahead and bring those ears back and we don't have to reach back to find our jade pillow, we can just go ahead and push that and reach up. So now we're in the alignment. So what's going to happen as we fan the fire of the heart chakra is that the light of the heart chakra illuminates the crown. And that is the crowned heart that you see. You know, I was in Ireland a couple of summers ago, and throughout that land, even the very old Irish crosses have a crown over the heart, right in the center of the cross. So go ahead and bring your chin towards your throat, lift up your head. I love this profile here because this monk has his head in a very nice position for holding it for longer periods of time, okay? So let's take a moment and thread our prana or our breath through this paradigm where the crown is over the heart, as Krishna says to Arjuna. Yeah. Okay. So carrying on. So now I've shown this to my students a few times. I'm amazed by he was the fastest man in the world for a long time, Usain Bolt. Isn't it funny that his name is Bolt? But his alignment, he was known for this very vertical presentation when he ran. And you can even compare him to these other fellows here whose heads are forward. No, his head is right over the chest. And then you also see that his arms he would pump his arms vertically. This guy was going up, okay? And in fact, look how far off the ground his feet are. It's just amazing. He's flying relative to these other fellows too. Here you can't see his, they cut off his foot, but look at the arms, so vertical. And also look at this amazing alignment. This is unbelievable. And here he is too with his feet, you know, off the ground. Look at that alignment. So here's what's happening with Usain Bolt. You know, gravity, we're going to be learning that alignment means making gravity an ally, not an enemy, okay? If you don't align with gravity, it'll pull you down, okay? But if you're in alignment, it gives you a bounce, okay? And this is, it goes into even the psychological truth of aligning with the things that pull you down. Okay, we'll be going into that more. But so just understand, alignment with gravity means now, instead of being something that is opposing your progress, it's giving you energy in your progress. It's helping you bounce forward. And so this is the importance of deepening our commitment to being grounded, to being here now, and realizing that whatever is pulling us down is also our ally for making us go forward. But all hail Usain Bolt. Thank you for helping us know things. So here we are, also reinforcing the idea that gravity can be an ally. With this poor lady, and I've been here, man. And look, she's not wearing the proper foot gear, you know, for the journey. And that's also important because you're not grounded, okay? These high heels, I mean, it's all very nice when you want to have a high heel, but if you want to get somewhere, this is not a good grounding for your feet. But also she's like pulling on this now. It probably doesn't weigh more than this, but this lady's figured out a better way to bear her burdens. And this is going to continue to be something that we remember, that it's physical, it's psychological and mental, that by assuming this posture, this vertical posture, we're able to transmit our burdens down into the ground instead of through our musculature have to hold them, okay? As you see, I put my head forward. Remember, that's the forward head posture, which precludes up to 30% of the oxygen that you would get in a breath, okay? It's stolen by this posture. And when you bring your head back, and we'll do a little bit more for the reinforcement of this posture using our rhomboids, we will see that we get all that oxygen. Let's do it now. We'll put our palms like this and squeeze the shoulder blades together. And this is something we do quite a bit. So, and when you exercise, do things to firm up those rhomboids. They are the muscles which are pulling your shoulder blades towards your spine. Now pull them down. Now we're going to hold this isometrically, okay? And so with the isometric tone, what's happening is that we're supporting a position of our airway. The bronchial tubes are going to be positioned in such a way we're going to get a little more oxygen when we breathe. Let's see if it's true. Pull, 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 squeeze. Now breathe. I don't think that's just in my mind. Shall we try it again? Let's do this. We'll put our head forward because we're walking along unconscious. And also there's something called embodied cognition. When your head is forward, they study your psychological state. You're thinking about the future and you're probably worried and you probably want to get there and you're not here now, right? Push your head forward. Now breathe. Okay, now pull the shoulder blades back, squeeze them together so that we'll work our rhomboids. Really almost try to make your elbows kiss. Hold it, 3, 2, 1. Let them come down and now breathe. This is called efficiency. Okay, remember the jade pillow? Jade is hard and that represents the discipline, but pillow is soft. So this discipline is actually relaxing, okay? So it's a discipline which is restful. That's what we're going to remember. So posture is attitude. Even in ballet, there's attitude. It's just a posture, you know. And it's our attitude is our orientation to reality. And this is what we're talking about. We're not just talking about our physical posture. And that's a problem when we are studying Hatha yoga asanas. We think it's all about the physical, and we don't realize that these physical postures are meant to give us the ability to do cognitive asanas. And these cognitive asanas require some subtle maneuvering of our chitti, our consciousness, and using breath helps us do cognitive asanas. You know, they also help us do a physical asana, but a cognitive asana takes, you know, a little bit of subtlety. But here we're remembering a beautiful moment in the Bhagavad Gita. Oh Krishna says, because Krishna is explaining to Arjuna all about a man of steady wisdom, or a person of steady wisdom, somebody who doesn't get upset when things are going wrong or elated when things are going well, and stays centered and joyful. Oh Krishna, how does one describe one whose consciousness is thus merged in the transcendent? It's called Sthitta Prajna. How does he speak? What is his language? How does he sit? And how does he walk? I love that, because Arjuna is a warrior. He's an athlete. See, he's interested in body language. Now, I like showing this guy here. This is Atlas, and Atlas is he had to bear the whole sky. And, you know, it's a bad idea. He should definitely have put it on the top of his head. But I also like to point out that if you know anything about karma yoga, which is the offering of your actions to a higher power as a servant, okay? So even when you go to work, when you cook your dinner, when you bathe, you're acting as a servant, okay? When you're a servant, you don't act like this guy. This guy is bearing it all on his ego. And Atlas was a titan. And so if we do get to Kashmiri Shaivism, there's a veil of illusion called the karma mala, which is the illusion of being the doer. And this guy's, I got to do this, and I got to do that, and then I got to do this. And that's the posture mentally and emotionally, and it's exhausting. And if you don't stop it, it's not going to stop. It's not suddenly everything's going to be easy. That just isn't the case, as far as I can tell. So I have here, I snuck in a picture of the head of my lineage, who is Nityananda. And I just think as in all the Buddhas that we see, the body language is the teaching. And it tells you everything you need to know about his state. And I love it. And so this is where we're going. We want to be like this. Even though we have jobs and families and rent to pay and bills to manage and health to take care of. That's really the whole Bhagavad Gita. So in the Bhagavad Gita, it's a beautiful moment in the very beginning when Arjuna who asks Krishna, who's his charioteer, cause my chariot to stand in the middle. And the middle is the middle of the battlefield. And so Krishna does what he says because he's his charioteer. It's a beautiful story how that happened. But the middle of the battlefield has a metaphysical symbolism about the middle of your central being, the middle of your subtle body, your energy body, which we call the Sushumna. You know, the whole Bhagavad Gita arises from the middle of that battlefield. It's the most beautiful thing. And the truth and all the teachings arise, okay, from the middle of the battlefield. Your middle of your battlefield is this thing here, which is the central channel called the Sushumna. And the chariot, we will learn, refers to also metaphysically or esoterically, I might say, to the wheels of the chakras. Chakra means wheel. So to say wheels of the chakras is redundant. But the chariot is your chakra system. And what we want to do is get the axle centered in the wheels. And we're going to do that. All these hatha yoga poses that you do enable the centering of energy in that Sushumna, which is our central channel. Now the Sushumna is like the eye of the storm. I have a little one here. And I've been in an eye of a storm, and it's like the birds are tweeting. First you've got this hurricane, then you've got, oh my God, it's a blue sky with like bluebirds and butterflies. And then the rest of the hurricane comes again. The eye of the storm is unbelievably tranquil. And that's the only place to get tranquility. You will not get satisfaction from getting into this whirlwind. Sometimes things will be going great, and then they're going to be terrible, and then they're going to be great, and then they're going to be terrible. And you know, there's a statement in the Yoga Vasishta of an enlightened queen, and she says, "I sport with the attenuated states of attachment and aversion, hence I am radiant." When you're in the center, you can sport with the attenuated or weakened states of attachment and aversion. You can enjoy the drama. There's going to be a drama. So you can enjoy it as in the witness place. Not all the time. You'll be swept into the whirlwind at times of fear and upset, and then happiness and joy. But get back into the center and observe your drama from there. Cause your chariot to stand in the middle. And here we have the depiction of the Sushumna, and then the two other important nadis. They're all called nadis. There's three important ones: the Sushumna, the Pingala, and the Ida. And those three, the Ida and the Pingala, are what are equilibrated in Hatha Yoga. Okay, those things become equal, and it's like alternating current that you plug into a wall. We are an alternating current. We also have direct current, but we have that alternating current which gives us energy when it's balanced. Okay, and here you see the middle path. You've heard of it, the Buddhist ideal of the Madhya Dasha or the Madhya Pratipad. And that means that I'm in the middle path, and then Madhya Nadi is another name for the Sushumna. Madhya means middle. And the middle path is not boring. You know, it actually takes great skill. So that's where we're going. Okay, now we have another statement which is going to be relevant for us, which comes from the Abhinavagupta and his beautiful treatise called Tantra Loka. We'll be meeting him more in the next couple of weeks, but here's a little taste of his incredible work. A yogi climbing the ladder of the elemental principles, the tattvas, remember those? Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, and bindu, or supreme principle. Yeah, a yogi climbing the ladder of the elemental principles, step by step, one pointed on the essence that transcends everything, achieves ascension to the ultimate principle and in the end identifies with Shiva. Seeing everything as one's own consciousness, one drinks the wine of bliss. No other aim of life remains to be accomplished after the rise of satisfaction attained through such awareness. I love Abhinavagupta. We're going to get to know him better. Here we have something from the Kularnava Tantra, author unknown, which is also reference to a ladder. As we're talking about the spiritual technology or scaffolding, which we have within our subtle body, which allows us to ascend from the gross to the subtle. So here's what the Kularnava Tantra says. After attaining a human body, which is difficult to obtain and which serves as a ladder to liberation, who is more sinful than one who does not cross over to the self? Okay, so throughout the yoga canon, especially from the higher teachers, they're going to say you have a human birth, you know, and it is this incredible opportunity. It's a vehicle to realization. And you know, we had, it's very lucky not only to get a human birth, but somehow or other to stumble upon the methods and means of getting to liberation, and which you have done. And there's something very fortunate about the condition that we're in. We also need grace. And later on, I'm going to tell a little story about grace as to how grace is part of this journey, the success of going where we want to go here. And so the idea of the ladder also comes in the Genesis, where Jacob has, he goes to sleep and he has a dream. And in the dream, he sees angels going up and down from earth to heaven. that heaven and earth dichotomy, that heaven and earth juxtaposition has to do with what we hold in our subtle body. And he's so elated by his dream that he actually sets up a stone. And he sets up a stone there, and then he pours oil over it. And this reminds us very much of Shiva Lingam and Shiva worship, or the Linga worship, which we'll be getting into not tonight so much, but we will. So we've got a ladder to liberation in our subtle body, even in our being. Okay, hold on. Remember, water is prana. The earth that you're sitting on is prana. The air you're breathing is prana. The light is prana. And being able to merge all these things that we're experiencing and understand they're all prana is part of attaining non-dual awareness. So when you go for a walk in the park and the birds are tweeting and there's the spring grass and maybe you've got a little river or some water near you, gotta praise prana while you're doing it. And you're then offering the effort, which brings grace. So in the Bhagavad Gita again, Arjuna, Krishna starts telling Arjuna all about meditating and stilling the mind and everything. And Arjuna is like in the middle of a war, and he's sort of like, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this. And he says to Krishna, the mind is very restless, turbulent, strong, and obstinate, O Krishna. It appears to me that it is more difficult to control than the wind. Then Krishna says something that, if you know the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, his answer says, by practice and detachment, you'll get to still the mind, which we know abhyasa vairagyam from the Yoga Sutra. But what's interesting is that he says the mind is more difficult to control than the wind. Well, if you control your breath, the wind, yes, you can control the mind. Thankfully, it's so helpful. That's where we're going. So let's take a little very brief, not brief, but not comprehensive tour of some of the things Patanjali says about prana. And first of all, his first important statements in the Yoga Sutra is yogas chittam vritti nirodha. And if you recall, the word chittam means consciousness. And we think it sounds a lot like chi in the reference to chi in the Far East. And chittam vritti is, they say thought waves, transformations, but it's what it sounds like. A vritti is a vortex in consciousness. Okay, we're going to learn how to unwind. You know how you say I can't wrap my mind around it. The mind wraps around stuff. That's chittam vritti, and nirodha means to cessation, as it might sound. So yoga is the cessation of the thought waves of the mind. Okay, why the heck should I want to do that? Because tada drashtu svarupe vastanam, then the abidance of the seer in their own nature. So you'll know your own nature. Well, why do I care about that? Because, I think I'll remember it in Sanskrit, anitya suchi dukkha atma kyatir. No, Nitya Suchi Dukkha Atma Nitya Suchi Sukha Atma Khyatira Vidya Anatmasu. Yeah. So I kind of messed it up, but it means that your true nature is eternal, pure, and blissful. Now you really want to know that. The eternal part especially. When you touch that, you just become fearless. You know you're eternal. You can sense it. And it's pure, so it's like nothing touches you. You become Teflon in that knowledge. People apply labels to you, and society applies labels to you. It just falls off because there's nothing to stick to. It's pure and it is blissful. And so for that reason, when we still the mind, we sense our eternity, our purity, and our ecstasy. So that's why we want to do it. Good. So Patanjali, he talks about asana. That's his, it's the yamas and the niyamas, which is the foundation ethically, which are very important in a spiritual practice. And you can even move your hips from side to side to feel your two sit bones and think of those as the yamas and the niyamas, the two foundations. And from there, you have asana, which is the position of the body, then pranayama, okay? And so that's what, and luckily, Patanjali says, posture being accomplished, the movements of inhalation and exhalation should be controlled. This is pranayama. So we should trust him that if we do what he says, the chitta vritti will be stilled and we will know our true nature, which is kind of a good thing. So he's kind enough to describe what happens in pranayama. We're going to be doing some very soon. Pranayama has 3 movements: prolonged and fine inhalation, exhalation, and retention, all regulated with precision according to duration and place. So the precision part is what I'm very interested in. We're going to be prolonging our breath. We're going to be refining it, and we're going to be retaining it tonight. And the precision is interesting because as we focus on breath, and especially on doing things with it, which are specific, it enables the mind to become very precise. And that precision of our attention is part of the skill set we need to enter into the appreciation of our true nature. Okay, because this bliss and this purity and this eternity, it's subtle. And so we have to refine our attention and our perception sufficiently to perceive it. And that is one of the things that goes on through breath awareness. When you spend a lot of time focused on your prana, your attention becomes refined, okay? And there's a few other really good things. It becomes detached from material realm, okay? Because the prana is so subtle, and it becomes formless, okay? When we really focus on the breath. So this precision part is pretty important, but we will be doing all these things, prolonging it, refining it, and retaining it. Okay, so here's a small piece of information from Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, which is, it seems that it may not be relevant, but we're going to see that it is. So the inner obstacles are accompanied by pain, depression, restlessness, and disrupted inhalation and exhalation, okay? So when you do yoga, a lot of times, and even when you do spiritual practices, you're reverse engineering the states of joy. And so since disrupted inhalation and exhalation characterizes the states of pain and depression, if we smooth out and remove the disruption or the jaggedness or the inequality from inhalation and exhalation, we then reverse engineer the state of calm and peace. Okay, so let's see, and also we reverse engineer removing pain and depression. Let's look a little bit closer though. What are these obstacles? Luckily, Patanjali's always good. If he says obstacles, he's going to tell you what they are. Disease, well, that's not good. Doubt, negligence, laziness, sensuality, wrong perception, failure to reach firm ground, and slipping from the ground gained. These are the obstacles. Okay, so disease is certainly something that we're highly aware of right now, a serious obstacle to our progress, and hopefully we are going to be doing these practices which enable us to fight off viruses and so on. But doubt is something I wanted to talk to you about. Can we use our breath practices to help us get away from doubt? Doubt is called samshaya in the Sanskrit, and it is pervasive. And I know that right now you probably doubt that you can be a realized being. Why is it so hard to understand or to believe that we can realize our true nature? You know, we really just have to make ourselves more subtle and refined and focused, and we will. But the doubt is so pervasive that it can follow your whole life. You have to get rid of it. Okay, we're going to be using our prana, our breath, as a sword to cut that doubt asunder. Negligence is, something that we, and I think it's very close to laziness. And I think those two things, in a way, when you do your breath awareness, you wake up. It's very hard to really be lazy when you're doing prana awareness. In a casino, they pump oxygen into a casino to get people to stay awake. So the oxygen keeps you awake. It'll help you not to be so lazy. Sensuality refers to being overly invested in sense pleasures. There's nothing wrong with that, but it means that you're trying to get from your measly senses the highest bliss. Okay. Now, if we restrain the senses, they can really produce beautiful experiences for us. But if you just keep trying to get more and more out of them, they become jaded and insensitive. So through pranayama, we also maintain sensitivity so that our senses are easily satisfied and easily delighted. Wrong perception, failure. I like the failure to reach firm ground. Okay, so part of the yogic practice, a tantric practice, which is what hatha yoga is being willing to fully engage in this place here and now. And that's reaching firm ground. And when you resist what's happening now, what is now, then you're not grounded. And if you're not grounded, you can't do the jump. Okay? So part of our breath practice is to take our attention and plunge it into the here and now, as uncomfortable as unsatisfactory as it may be, and it always is. So to be firmly grounded is we use our breath to engage in the reality. And from that, we can move forward. If we don't, we can't. So these are the slipping from the ground game. So when I do hatha yoga with my students, I make sure that they don't feel that they're sliding, okay? Because we should not feel that we don't have a firm footing. Especially when you do hatha yoga practices, you're reinforcing the emotional neurochemistry of those body languages, okay? You don't want to reinforce, I'm not grounded, I don't have my footing. Okay, you want to reinforce a sense of stability. You want to reinforce balance, equality, and well-being, and that attitude toward reality or orientation toward reality, which we are calling a mental asana. So we're going to be ready now for some breath retention. Okay, and I think you may have done it, but we'll do it again together. So here we are. We don't want those obstacles in our way. And Patanjali says the mind can be clarified by holding in or out of breath. We're going to be doing breath retention both inward and outward. Okay, so let's see a little bit more about the power and the reason behind breath retention. Okay, so this is the word for breath retention, which is kumbhak. And it is pot, and so because when you inhale and if you bear down on the inhalation, your abdomen will expand. And before we do the breath retention, we're going to do just some basic breathing so that we're all on board with what's supposed to go out when you breathe in and what's supposed to go in when you breathe out. Okay, so that's kumbhak. Now here's something from a tantric text called the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. When kumbhak takes place at the end of the exhalation and at the end of the inhalation, the Shakti, that's our consciousness, is known as Shanta, which is peace. And through that peace, Bhairava is revealed. So remember how when your mind is Chittam Vritti Nirodha, that's the peace, and Bhairava, which is the absolute, is revealed. That's a pretty amazing statement. And we're going to see if it's true. We'll experiment. But a little bit on the neurochemical. And so I work with a psychiatrist, and she tells me that when we hold our breath, it stimulates a cascade of dopamine. Okay, so dopamine is uh, all over the place apparently, but it's a reward chemical, and it is it gives motivation. Okay, so it's when we're in low dopa, it is not a good thing. And I think a lot of us are in a little low dopa experience right now because we're not moving around. Okay, and the less we move, emotions are not moving through us, and we're feeling stuck, and we're feeling, I should be cleaning out my closet. Why aren't I not cleaning out my closet? If you are, I congratulate you. I'm sitting here with all the time in the world, and the closet is not clean. So I got a little low dopamine. So when you hold your breath, you remember that brainstem, the reptilian brain, the will to live, which is why we're here, which is indomitable, and why the reptilian brain in your medulla oblongata and the brainstem is here through all these hundreds of millions of years of evolution, because it wills to live, and it controls breathing, respiration, and other basic things. So when you hold your breath, you get a cascade of the will to live, if you will, okay, of desire. And so then when you let the breath in or out, depending if you held it, you get a cascade of, wow, thank you, satiety, and gratitude. And when you do breath holding, you're setting up a neural pathway of gratitude for breath. And remember, we've been taking breath for granted. The prana of the universe is the divine. And that's our problem, okay? We've been walking around with this thing under our nose, which is the treasure of all reality, but we forget. So when we do the breath holding, it helps us reinforce there's only one thing that matters, okay? And it brings the intention that many meditation practices do not have. If your mind is wandering when you meditate, your intention, my intention, let me put it that way, isn't strong enough. You don't realize you're on a tightrope over a chasm of fire, and you're about to fall off if your mind wanders. But because the universe has actually been very nice to us and we're not walking on a tightrope, so we let our mind wander. But the breath holding gets us back to that sense of the need to survive, and yoke that intention to the meditative progress. Okay, so let's see some more. And it's let's see, here we are. I'm going to give you a little story about how breath holding helps intention. A hermit was meditating by a river when a young man interrupted him. "Master, I wish to become your disciple," said the man. "Why?" asked the hermit. "Because I want enlightenment." The master jumped up, grabbed him by the scruff of his neck, plunged his head underwater. After holding him there for a minute, the master pulled him out of the river. The young man gasped to get his breath. When he eventually quieted down, the master spoke. "Tell me, what did you want most of all when you were under the water?" "Air," answered the man. "Very well. Go home and come back to me when you want God as much as you wanted air." Well, we're going to develop that easily with some kumbhak. Here's another reason for the kumbhak. When prana moves, the mind moves. This is from the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. When prana is without movement, mind is without movement. So this is a way to stop the mind. And then we link this to the Shiva Sutra we had looked at the first time. The link of consciousness with prana is natural. So when the prana moves, the mind moves. When the prana stops, the mind stops. You're going to see when you hold your breath that you can think, but it's hard. It doesn't come naturally. Okay, so we're going to do our first kumbhak with a sitali breath, which is the pursed lips breath. One of the wonderful, kind students outlined on Facebook the different pranayamas we did the first class, and I really appreciate him. I forget his name, but he was kind enough to do that. And he mentioned we did Sitali, and we're going to do it again. So let's see what it says here in the Yoga Kundalini Upanishad. Drawing the breath through the tongue with the hissing sound and retaining it, the wise man, well, we could say wise woman, should slowly exhale through the nostrils. This destroys diseases. The practice of breath control should be performed daily with the mind firmly fixed on truth. Okay, so let's try that together. And I'm going to bow my head, and this is to get and let my shoulders loop up and down, pull them back down. Good. And with me, do sitali. Now, when you purse your lips and feel the coolness, it's called cooling breath. It'll cool you because you're making the breath focused on the tip of your tongue. The coolness on your tongue pervades your attention. And when you're too hot, you can do this. I do it all the time. And you also are as if tasting wine, okay? So we're gonna do it the first time and hold it. And the next time I'm gonna ask you, taste the prana, okay? So let's exhale through our nose, purse our lips, and let the coolness flood your tip of your tongue as you purse your lips and breathe in. Hold it in your belly. 3, 2, when you're ready, you exhale through your nose. And now just be. Good. We'll do that again. So we're going to purse the lips, and you are, remember when Patanjali said to refine, that the breath had to be fine? This is how you make the breath fine. Now remember, prana and consciousness are a couple. So when you make the breath fine, the mind becomes fine. Let's try it. Breathe out through your nose, purse your lips, and taste the wine that we've always neglected to taste, which is prana. How does it taste? Hold it in the belly. And as you hold it in the belly this time, let your abdomen really expand. And at your own leisure, when you feel the need, you're going to breathe out. I'm going to do it now. And just be. Your chittam vritti is nirodha. You're drinking the bliss of your own nature. Beautiful. We're going to do that again. And this time we're going to note at the end of the inhalation if the mind really does stop its nonsense for at least a few seconds. Let's try it. But first, I want us to take a few moments apart from this and place our hands on our ribs, okay? And I wanted to do that so that we could reinforce when we inhale fully and abdominally, the ribs are going to expand and your lower lungs are going to fill. Your chest isn't going to go expanding. It's your abdomen and your ribs, okay? Breathe in. Feel them expand from side to side. Good. We'll do that twice more. So our chest doesn't expand when we breathe deep, really. It's the belly and the ribs. Feel them go out to the side against your hands. It can be very satisfying. And we'll do that one more time. Aren't your lungs, aren't they happy? Mine seem to be happy. Okay, chin to throat. And we will do one more sitali, as I promised. So we're going to take a moment and purse the lips and feel the coolness on our tongue. Taste it. Is it vanilla? Hold it in. Let it out. Your chittam vritti is nirodha, and you're experiencing your true nature. Beautiful. Now we're going to try breath holding with our exhalation. So with the now we're going to be doing our, remember how Patanjali said you could exhale and hold the breath out, or you could hold it in. We just held it within. And when you breathe it out, it's called Rechika Kumbhak. And we're going to combine that, just as we inhale, we did our breath holding, we combined it with the Sitali pranayama. We're going to combine the exhalation breath holding with the Mula Bandha. The Mula is the root. And that chakra is the one that is the grounding. And if we're not grounded, if we refuse to be here, which I think I'm guilty, most of my life, but yoga's helped me so much to say, all right, let me get into it, because there's no way out but in. So here you see the fact of the matter of a tree, how much the roots are comparable to the area of the flourishing of the tree. And so the mula is the root, and a bandha is binding. It's a wonderful, Sanskrit has so many words that are comparable to modern European languages. And so when you squeeze the root, okay, you're going to innervate. You're going to feel there's going to be energy and blood supply brought to the musculature, the nerves, and everything else that's here. So you're watering your roots in the Mula Bandha. We'll be doing it together. And so we're going to learn a little about apana, but apana, which has a downward tendency, should be raised up with effort by contraction. This is spoken of as the root lock. Let's see some more. Here, from the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, we're going to see that this thing we're about to do arouses the Kundalini. But I say that you must not try to arouse the Kundalini without reverence, love, and humility. By seizing the tail of the Kundalini, that's the squeezing we're going to do, she becomes very excited. Abandoning sleep, that Shakti is released and rises up. Then indeed, central channel becomes the pathway of prana. Mind is free of all connections and death is averted. It should be free of all attachments. The central channel, we're going to learn more, easily becomes established by yogis persistent in practice of asana, pranayama, mudra, and concentration. Let's see if I have anything more. Okay, so what we are going to do with the Mula Bandha in a moment, we're going to hiss on the exhalation. And when we do that, it's going to exercise and strengthen this muscle, which is your transversus abdominis. Wraps around the pelvis and attaches to your rectus spinae in the back. This is a girdle, okay? Behind that are your abdominal organs. Your other abdominal muscles are on top of that. This is the deepest one. When you exhale, you squeeze that girdle, okay? And it's probably the only way, when you exhale hard, I should say, against resistance, which is what we're going to do with the tongue to teeth, that's the only way to strengthen that muscle. And it's involved in respiration. So, if you, God forbid, had to get respiratory therapy, they would make you bleed blowing to exercise that transversus abdominis. We're going to do it a lot anyway. So it says here, contracting the perineum. We're not going to do the throat and draw the abdomen up, okay? This is something from the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. But just right now, we're going to do the hard exhalation. Let me get back. To squeeze ourselves. Okay, and then we're going to hold the breath out. Ready? Good. Might want to, let's do a little twist. We'll put a hand behind us, put the hand on the opposite knee, shoulder blade toward the spine. Remember the importance of the rhomboids. Chin back. Release. Come back to the other side. Good. You see how a twist makes our center implicit? Stimulates the two consciousness of the two sides of the nervous system and the two hemispheres of the brain. Good. Back to center. Now we're going to purse the lips. We're going to inhale through our nose, and on a hiss, you're going to squeeze your genitals, your perineum, which is the floor of the pelvis, and your transversus abdominis is going to help expel the air. We'll do it together 3 times. So breathing in through your nose. Now get a hold of yourself and pull it together. Go. Are you pulling yourself together? Are you grabbing those roots? Hold on, squeeze, squeeze. Don't breathe in. Squeeze, squeeze. Keep squeezing 3. Keep squeezing 2. And now breathe in and relax. Good. We're going to get a hold of ourselves again and pull ourselves together. Okay? We're in the middle of a battlefield. We better pull ourselves together. Pull the chin in toward the throat. Breathe. Now get a hold of yourself. The hiss works that transversus, so do it. And it's, now you're squeezing everything you got. You're grabbing a hold of the root and you're pulling. And you're pulling it, squeezing it, and you're muscular. Squeeze. 3, 2, now breathe in. And you're so joyful when you breathe in. And one more time. Exhale when you're ready, first breathing in, and get a hold of yourself. Pull yourself together. Good. Now,
I know, that's why it's confusing.
Okay, somebody is talking out loud. Keep squeezing your perineum. Squeeze 3, 2, 1, and then relax and breathe in. Okay. I heard a voice and it said it was confusing. So Mika, can I get a comment if I need to clarify something now?
Sure. I guess folks are asking, are they squeezing while inhaling or after exhale?
Oh gosh, no. You're squeezing while you exhale, okay? Let's be clear. You inhale, and on the exhalation, you squeeze what you have, okay? That's how you hiss. Do you hiss by breathing in? Maybe you do. We're not hissing by breathing in. We're hissing breathing out, okay? I'm glad you asked. Any other, we'll do it again, but any other to be clear?
And do you inhale through the nose?
Yes. Now, remember, we practiced inhaling through the lips, which was Sita Li, right? But generally, it's advised to breathe in through the nose. But if you feel like breathing in through your mouth, make it work for you by doing the Sita Li is the inhalation as you purse your lips and breathe in, like you're sipping through a straw. When you do Mula Bandha, you exhale. Okay, so let me see if everybody is on board and we'll do it again. Do we all understand? Okay, so we're not gonna breathe in through our lips. That was something we tried before. Now we're gonna breathe in through our nose and exhale, squeezing our perineum, which is the floor of your pelvis and your genitals. You ready? Let's do it together. You can't do too many because they're strong, like martinis, you know? So breathe in through your nose and get a hold of yourself as you exhale through your teeth and squeeze. You feel it? Don't breathe in now. You're just holding it out. Is your mind chattering? Check. You're not breathing. Now breathe in. Okay, we're going to do another one. And we'll be doing these again next week so that we can be clear, but Mula Bandha is with an exhalation, you're grabbing a hold of the musculature and you are breathing against your teeth, okay? So you're hissing. Ready? Breathe in through your nose. You can also breathe in through your lips, but I don't want to confuse you. Breathe in through your nose, get a hold of yourself and squeeze. Now don't let go. Hold the root, squeeze it some more. Get that blood flow down in there. That's what's going to happen. Squeeze some more. Don't let go. You're not inhaling. You're holding it out. Now you breathe in through your nose. Good. If you want to initiate a deep breath, you can always breathe out all the way because the next breath will be deep inside. So Mika, is there more confusion?
I haven't seen anything else come through the chat.
Okay.
I think we're good.
Okay, thank you. All right, next. Now, this is reminds us what we just did of the Lotus Sermon, which the Buddha famously gave a wordless sermon. And in that sermon, he was by a pond. He reached in and took a lotus out of the pond and held it up. And if you've ever seen lotus roots, this is what they look like. They're incredibly slimy. And he held the whole thing up. Only one disciple understood. He was talking about, and we'll learn more about this when we learn more about Tantra next week, the importance of the root for the flourishing of the lotus or the flower. And a lot of what we do in yoga is to go down into the root, to nourish the root, and not be decide that it's disgusting and only the flower is wonderful, because you don't get the flower without the rich enriched root. Okay, just want to see our time. This is the lake of the mind and the flower that's resting on it. Okay, so now we're going to learn a little bit more about what all this is about, why we exhaled so hard, why we inhale and hold it in, because we're establishing the awareness and the energy in the central channel. Remember the axle of the wheels? Okay, that's your sushumna. And here it says in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, in this body, there are 72,000 subtle channels. Of these, the central channel, the Sushumna, is the only important one. And you're going to find the Hatha Yoga Pradipika is very, certain about it. Svatmarama, I think his name was, and he just says what he believes is true. It's the only important one. Let's go on. There's something in India which is called the Triveni Sangam. And Triveni Sangam means the merging Sangha, or the confluence of three rivers, Triveni. The three rivers, now in real life, you see there's the two rivers, the Ganga and the Yamuna, and there's a third river called the Saraswati, which is not there. Those are two, this is the Ganga and that's the Yamuna, and they're coming together, and there's an imaginary third river called the Saraswati. It turns out from when they can see things that they didn't used to be able to see from satellites, that there was a third river. And this is what this map means. This is the Triveni Sangam, the merging of the three rivers, the Ida, the Pingala, and the Sushumna, just for your information. Okay, so more. As long as prana does not enter and flow in the middle channel, and as long as the mind does not become absorbed in spontaneous meditation, so long all talk of knowledge and wisdom is merely nonsensical babbling. I told you he gets a little bit impatient. So what we're doing is making the prana, when you did that mula bandha, it makes the prana flow in the middle channel. Now we're working with breath, we're working with muscle, we're working with nerve. Those are not prana and the middle channel. The prana and the middle channel are more subtle, okay? But these physical things promote and enhance the flow of the subtle energy. That makes sense, doesn't it? Now, in Vedanta, we have a whole system of self-inquiry. And Vedanta comes from the Upanishads. And they always talk about the Atman, and the Atman being the inner self. And if you recall, Atman originally meant breath. So if you are doing self-inquiry practices, use your breath to stand in for the self. Self-inquiry is kind of hard. Like, where's the self? What are they talking about? Love myself? Who's the self? What are you talking about? Use the breath. The breath will stand in for the self very nicely. It's meant to do that. You can love your breath. You can inquire. You can examine it. You can pay attention to it. And that is all Atma Vichara. You're doing Vedanta when you pay attention to your breath. Okay? So a little bit more, this is also from Vedanta, about what happens with breath practices. Okay, we're not doing a lot of meditation right now on the breath, but when you do, you get viveka and vairagya. Viveka is discernment, and it's often represented by a sword, and detachment is vairagya. So focusing on our breath detaches us from the awareness of more gross events and phenomena. So when you focus on your breath, you are doing pratyahara, that limb in the 8 limbs of yoga, which there's yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, withdrawal of attention from the external to the internal. That's what pratyahara is. Breath awareness accomplishes pratyahara. It accomplishes detachment, and it accomplishes viveka. And here we have Manjushri, who is holding a flaming sword. The sword is the representation of the power of viveka, which is the ability to cut ourselves away from attachment to illusion. Okay, and I love that it's a fiery sword. You can make your prana move up and down your central channel to become a fiery sword, which cuts through the illusions of attachment and aversion that we all have. Okay, and here we have another way to understand that the sword is a good way to think about the spine. And if you want to move your hips from side to side again, that's the hilt of your sword, your pelvis, and the tip of your sword is the crown of your head. So let's take a few breaths to sharpen the sword. Okay, so as you inhale, you sharpen one side of that blade, and as you exhale, the other side. You're breathing in when you inhale through your nose. All the way down to the ground, and exhale through your nose. And if you will, imagine the exhalation going up to the crown of your head, the tip of the sword. Okay, now keep doing it. Some people, when they breathe in, the energy seems to go up, and when they breathe out, it goes down. There's some very subtle reasons why that's true, but they're both okay. Just establish your breath moving up and down your core with your nose breath, breathing through your nose, chin to throat. As you focus on your breath, your mind is becoming subtle. Try on your inhalation some breath holding. Hold the breath in, your abdomen will expand. And then breathe out through your nose. Then pay attention to your inner quality. Just a little more. This focus on your prana, on your breath, is focus on your inner self. Now add, if you can, love. Love your prana. When we hold the breath, it's easy to feel real gratitude for the prana. So we breathe in and hold it. That way, when we let the breath out through the nose, we'll feel that we love it. Because if you withhold from it, you're going to love it when you get it. Hold 3, 2, breathe out through your nose. Good. All right. Oh, geez. Okay, so this is very beautiful. When the mind comes to rest, restrained by the practice of yoga and beholding the self by the self, he is content in the self. This is what you just did. You beheld the self by the self and are content in the self. we'll be doing some more. Now I'm going to move fairly quickly through some statements by Thich Nhat Hanh, and he is a practitioner of Vipassana, the mindfulness way of being, and it's all about breath awareness. And I wanted you to be aware of that and to know him. It's always good to make friends with people like him, emotionally, mentally. So he says, people have a hard time letting go of suffering. Out of fear of the unknown, they prefer suffering that is familiar. Remember, when we pay attention to the breath, we're letting go of other considerations, of gross things. This is more subtle, and in order to pay attention to it, you have to let go of those thoughts. I use Lot's wife as an example of someone who couldn't let go of suffering. And as you may know the story, you may not, Sodom and Gomorrah was on fire and being destroyed, and she and her family were allowed to leave, but they were told, don't look back. When you meditate, don't be Lot's wife, looking at the bad stuff and the terrible thing and what happened. You're going to turn into a pillar of salt before you know it. Okay? So Lot's wife tells us that we are attached to suffering. We can't stop looking at it. Pay attention to your prana, okay? As if your life depended on it. That's why we do breath holding, because it gets us the sense that your life does depend on it, actually. Okay? Thich Nhat Hanh, feelings come and go like clouds in a windy sky. Conscious breathing is my anchor. Be that way. Focus on your breath. Don't go off into, all the feelings that come and go, taking you for a ride. As he says, our way is to practice one step at a time, one breath at a time, with no gaining idea. So you're not trying to get anything when you focus on the prana. It's just homage to the foundation of existence, consciousness. So we're not going to expand on the Anapanasati Sutta, but except to refer that it exists. And it was one of the main teachings which was written in the Pali Canon of the Buddha. And Anapana has to do with the prana. And if anybody has a very important question, let me know, but I think I'm going to go on. So the breath mindfulness discourse was Buddha's instructions on using awareness of the breath for meditation. Now, what did he say? Here, Anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing, the simple practice using breath as the object of attention, which we return to every time we notice the mind has wandered. But, like I said, your mind won't wander if you feel that it's important that it doesn't wander, okay? And there are some other illustrative stories about that, but just try to take into your meditation a sense of urgency. You had better pay attention, okay? And that's why we do breath holding, because it gets a hold of our very basic drive to survive, and it links it to breath awareness. Okay? This is what the Buddha said. Oh, bhikkhus, the method of being fully aware of breathing, if developed and practiced continuously, will have great rewards and bring great advantages. So that's what you're doing. You're fully aware of breathing and you're developing and practicing it. Okay. So present moment awareness is accomplished by breath awareness. As we have said, the viveka, the vairagya, these are accomplished with breath awareness. And also this thing everybody talks about, being in the moment, breath awareness. Breathing in, I calm my body and mind. Breathing out, I smile. Dwelling in the present moment, I know this is the only moment. Do it now. Plunge into the present with your inhalation. Get all the way to the floor and use that gravitational bounce to get yourself back to the source on the exhalation, to the crown of the head. Okay. This is from a Greek Orthodox saint, and it was just Greek Orthodox Easter yesterday. What did he say from the 13th century? you know that our breathing is the inhaling and exhaling of air. The organ that serves for this is the lungs that lie round the heart, so that the air passing through them thereby envelops the heart. Thus, breathing is a natural way to the heart. And so, having collected your mind within you, lead it into the channel of breathing through which air reaches the heart. And together with this inhaled air, cause your mind to descend into the heart and remain there. Okay, so we're going to go a little more subtly into how the breath enters the heart, and we're going to see. Now, I'm going to go through this really quickly. It's unnecessary, really, except for this one point. Okay, so there are 5 pranas. We can go through those next week. Prana, apana, udana or uddiyana, vyana, and samana. So these are the prana is the inward, the apana, the outward. Uddiyana is upward. Vyana is all pervasive, expanding, and samana is distributive. Just deal with it. These, remember last week somebody asked about yawning, and I thought, I think there's a prana involved in it, but I'd forgotten. And truly there is. There's one of the sub pranas, which is responsible for yawning, devadatta. Okay. Don't get confused. There's something only important thing here is the kurma prana, which is the prana which resorts to the eyes as seeing. Okay, there's a prana coming out of your eyes. You're putting prana out into the universe through your eyes. All your senses are being activated by prana. The consciousness of prana is moving through your ears, nose, eyes, the feeling, and the hearing. It's giving you hearing. Okay, but we're very interested right now in kurma prana because we're going to work with it. Okay, so take a moment here, take a breath, establish your present moment awareness, please. Good. Good. So we're going to investigate this course. It says in the title is the word chakra. We're going to get into it, okay? But the first thing I want us to do is to bow the head, bring the chin toward the throat, and place a palm on the back of the head and give it a little push, okay? And your chin is going to come towards your throat. And that's the Jalandhara Bandha, which we may do next week. So the chin to throat, and you can even increase it by opening your mouth to push the chin and then move it. Now, push your head down and feel the space between your shoulder blades and breathe in. Good. Take our hand down. And we're going to do the opposite. So when you bowed your head, you opened the heart center. But now you're going to bring your shoulder blades together and lift your chest, okay? So this is the opposite extension. Pull your shoulder blades down. So this is all about focal point of the sternal area, which is where the heart chakra is. Pull your shoulder blades together, lift your chest. And now you're going to inhale through your pursed lips. You're breathing in through your lips like sipping, like this. And then you're going to bring your ears over your shoulders. Good. You can blow out through your nose or lips. So now we've enabled ourselves to pay a little bit more attention to the heart chakra. That's going to be an important place for us because there's a lot of reasons why it's optimal to focus on the heart chakra. The heart chakra is the meeting place of the lower 3 and the upper 3. And you can remember that lotus sermon where the roots aren't so pretty, but they're necessary? That's the lower. The upper is the stem and the beautiful flowering of the lotus at the crown of the head, okay? The heart unites them. It's the place where they're in balance, okay? It is the doorway to the infinite. The heart is an optimal place to focus. Over here, I have a favorite image, which is the explosion in the Brookhaven labs where they tried to replicate the Big Bang, and they came up with this. They put some gold ions together in such a way that they said this is what the Big Bang was like. Well, there are 12 segments here, and that's kind of interesting. This is the heart chakra, which was drawn by a guy named Ledbetter in the turn of the century. And he was a theosophist. So in my practice, I'm going to tell you a little about seeing chakras and investigating them through my own perception in deep meditation. And this was because I practiced a heck of a lot with a great guru. And so I didn't mean to practice, I just did it because it was so blissful and I had to do it. So, but there are, this is what it actually, there are different dimensions to look at the chakras, but in truth, the chakra of the heart appears like this. Isn't it organic looking? It doesn't look like a drawing, and it flutters. All these things are vibrating. It's a little darker red, and there's a hole in the middle because the hole is the central channel. This is a drawing, okay, and some there, because around here are some vibrations of letters. But now I just want you to take this in. This is a Shri yantra, but it is also called a Shri chakra. And the reason it's called a Shri chakra is because your chakras have filaments, triangular filaments of light, which structurally hold the chakras together. They're in here. This is, like I said, a different dimension. Think of two maps. One is a topography map, and the other is a map of the subways. Okay, so this is one way to look at it. But if you are at the top of the crown of your head looking down your sushumna, your central channel, this is what you see. And it's a three-dimensional thing. This is actually you looking down the map of your chakras, and they have these vibrant triangles. And they're very beautiful. So let's see, we're going to be concentrating on one. This is also, notice it, very much the same motif as the shield of David. Now, here we have Bernini's David, and the story of David was that he was given armor by King Saul to go against the Philistine, Goliath. And David wore the armor and he walked around in it and he couldn't walk with it, and he took it off. So what's the shield of David? Okay, when I saw this statue, I cry. It's just so beautiful. And at the bottom, I saw this armor. So I had to go find out, why did Bernini put armor here? And I read the story. Turns out David took off the armor. So what was his shield? His shield is his alignment. This is the basic crown of the head and the perineum adjusted and juxtaposed, okay? So I want you to do it right now, okay? You're gonna push your two sit bones down and your pubic bone down. That makes the triangle. Place your crown of your head over it, and that makes the other triangle. And from the top, they're making the alignment. And you're gonna breathe to thread that alignment right now. That's what you need. You don't need armor when you have this ally. Okay? So this is the Shri yantra, which is also called the Shri chakra, because your chakras look like this from the top down. Okay? As you see, they all have these triangles in them. There's a lot more symbolism to show you. So now, remember the kurma prana? That's the prana that comes out of your eyes, giving you sight. The kurma prana is praised as the Kundalini Shakti. Okay, we're going to get into this next week. You're going to have to focus your mind, okay, and do your practices. This is from the Kundalini Stavaha, which praises the Kundalini Shakti, which is a prana, a form of prana, which is at the base of the spine, which is aroused through these practices, and which flows through all your nadis, giving you bliss consciousness. O revered one, residing in the eyes as the Kurma Prana, you are the power which opens and closes the eyes. O Bhagavati, bestow you on me your compassionate glance. See how the eye in the middle here? Good. So now we're going to practice. This is the last thing we're doing. I want to check the time. So just for 5 minutes, and then we'll have questions. We're going to practice focusing using the Shri yantra and pouring our Kuma prana into the center. Okay, so I want you to take a meditative posture where you're aligning your crown and your perineum and breathe along that, breathing in and out. And start just gazing at the center. This is called Tratak. Krishna. Now you're going to look at the first downward flowing triangle you can identify and look at that. Okay. The triangles are going to seem to move. They're very dynamic. Okay, now you're going to look at the next sized upward triangle, whatever you can find. Just gaze at that. Next, the next biggest downward triangle. Don't be too strict, just find one and look at it. They're all going to move. Now the next sized triangle downward. Now the next one upward. Staying your attention in the center. Now you're going to reverse it. Going to the next one down. Next one up. Next smaller one down. And just stay in the center. You're going to breathe in now through your nose, and you're going to squeeze that moolah, okay, with a hissing exhalation. So breathe in through your nose and get a hold of your lower muscles with a hissing exhale. Hold the breath out. The prana is in the crown of your head, and you're still gazing at the center. Now inhale through your nose. And when ready, we're going to inhale our palms together and let the fingers touch the third eye. Okay, and I have to put my earbuds away. Time to stop share.
There we go. Awesome. Thank you so much, Mary. We have a couple of questions here from the beginning of the session. Does the Ida Pingala and Shushimna ever become one and flow together?
Okay, can you repeat it, Mika? I didn't hear the first part.
Okay. Does the Ida, Pengali, and Shushimna ever become one and flow together?
Well, yes, the Ida and the Pingala are the two serpentine energies that we see in the caduceus, and we might even think they are they look like DNA, and we see that motif throughout the world. This understanding of the energy. So when you say flow together, where they cross is at where the chakras are, and what happens is that the Ida, the Pingala become balanced, and then the central channel awakes. But there's other ways that you can awaken that central channel.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And the next question refers to when we were talking about obstacles. Why would sensuality be an issue?
Yeah.
I don't know if you...
Yeah, I've heard that question, and I probably should go for a different translation of the word. But so sensuality, which we might sort of exalt in our culture, we think, oh, this is great to be sensual. But what is meant is like I mentioned, the over, people who eat too much, drink too much, fuck too much. Sorry, guys, that all those things too much. It's not that fun. Okay, there has to be some discipline. So that this means over sensuality. They travel all over. You're not getting what you want. I can't get no satisfaction. So sensuality is the attempt to rub your senses raw, and the less they give, the more you have to have more intensity. So you drink more, or you do whatever it is more, and that is sensuality. It's not the point. It's not going to get you the bliss you want. When you do yogic practices, even meditating a little bit restrains your senses for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, so that when you then bring them back out into the world, they're sensitive and they can be easily delighted. Okay, but the more we don't withdraw them and nourish them in our central channel, in our bliss, and in quietude, it's like you're not sleeping. So you need to pull your senses away. That's what sensuality means there. It means you're over emphasizing sense pleasures, and it's going to be a law of diminishing returns.
Yeah, thank you for that explanation and clarity. The next question is from Devandra. They say, thank you, Mary, for a fabulous session. I see a lot of modern texts talk about rising of the Kundalini from the base of the spine to the crown. It's mostly Shakti rising up to meet Shiva. What about Shiva descending down to meet with Shakti?
Definitely. Sorry.
Would you comment on this now or during one of the next sessions?
I think we'll get into that more next week, but I definitely, of course, on the inhalation, so you could think that Shakti and Shiva, so Shiva's the awareness or the pupil of the eye, and Shakti is the prana or the iris of the eye, and you can't have one without the other. You won't get sight. So Shiva definitely is drawn into the material plane through the inhalation, and she ascends on. So it's like the ideal and the real, I would say, are connecting. That's one way to look at this. Now you can look at it the other way. It could be the male is the real and the female is the ideal, if you prefer it. But it's opposition. It's polarity. Okay, so definitely does the Shiva, the consciousness, descend into this incredible realm, and they're having a mad love affair. We're going to get into that more.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
And did the exercise that we did, the breathing exercise where we inhaled through our nose and exhaled with the Mula Bandha, does
Yeah.
that have a name?
Well, the Mula Bandha has a name, and
Mhm.
the that's pretty much it.
Okay.
When
So
you
it doesn't have a name like Satali breathing.
No,
Okay.
not that I know of. It might, but you know, again, the feeling and the attitude, the reverence, that's more important in a way than these things. But I don't think it does have a name.
Okay. And the follow-up question to that is, what is the max time that you would observe retention?
Well, that's up to you. And you don't force it, because again, you got to remember prana is conscious, okay? So you want to be like, have a relationship, okay? And so you retain it reverentially and to your own level. Eventually you increase the amount that you'd retain it. You'll feel like you want to. You can stretch your diaphragm. We'll do more breath holding next time, but you only want to do 2 or 3 to calm the mind, to stabilize the mind, and then coast and taste your true nature and recognize your true nature. Okay, recognition we're going to get into next week, but that's the thing. It's right there and we're not recognizing it. So don't get too involved with how long you hold your breath. Get involved with the experience of your mind state after you hold your breath and what happens with your mind. That's what is interesting, not how long you hold it.
Thank you. Is there are there any medical contraindications for breath retention?
Well, some people get very anxious when they hold their breath, and I'm not a doctor, but I do work in a psychiatrist's practice, so I'm aware of using these practices to help people control, panic attacks. And we did a little bit of breath holding using our nose and stuff last week. We'll do some more of that, but so if you get anxious, don't do it, okay? Because it's the quality of your mind. This is why we're doing it. So people who force themselves into breath practices and they're not loving it, you should do much less. It's all about what happens to your chitti as a result, and you want to experience that and cultivate it. And the breath practices become more and more spontaneous. So you're in the middle and your mind has wandered and you just go and hold it and release it because you are in love with it, because you realize that it's the goddess consciousness or Shiva, whichever type of love affair you like.
And I think the next question is in regards to the 5 pranas that you listed. How would you decide which pranayama to practice at any given time? I mean, this might be something that you mentioned later, but they're imagining that each pranayama has its own unique purpose. And you might have already spoke to it, but just to kind of, do any of the 5 pranayamas have just like a unique purpose?
Well, you're going to find the ones that you like. So I do Sita Li like when I'm running around or when I'm really anxious. Okay, Sita Li's the breath in through the lips like this. As soon as I do that, I turn off fight or flight and I become able to make mindful decisions and choices. Fight or flight is not a choice-making state of awareness. You're reactive. Okay, and you lose it sometimes, which is not cool. When you're lengthening the prana, and we know that that's doing something to the vagal nerve and turning on the parasympathetic nervous system, which we went through last week. Maybe we'll review a little bit next week. So for me, the pursed lips breath, but if you aren't digging it, maybe you like the breath holding, maybe you like alternate nostril breathing, which we didn't do today, but we did last time. So find the one that calms you down and gives you choice. And I have a cousin who, he's taught me a lot. He was a special forces warrior and was lost in a place where it was going to be really bad if he was captured. And he was panicked. And he said that he breathed. And he breathed and got himself on top of a hill and took deep breaths and saw his way out and got out. And I was very impressed that he's not a yoga practitioner, but he figured out that in order to survive, he had better turn off the panic and go into the calm.
Awesome. There were a few questions, a couple of questions that came in regarding the visualization of the Sri Yantra chakra.
Okay.
As to understanding, like clarifying the exercise itself in terms of like the perspective of the view. Can you add like just any more to just adding more comments or understanding as to why we were gazing at the triangles?
Okay, so, you know, the Sri Yantra is a very holy thing. It's, and again, we'll probably dive into it more. It's very tantric. When you gaze at the center, remember that the center bindu or the dot actually is the where your central channel, your sushumna, threads the chakras, which are you know, stacked one on top of the other. And when we have them in alignment, right, we have Shri, which is the flourishing, flowing abundance. Okay, so through alignment is the abundant infinite flow, the cornucopia. And so with the focus of the eyes, we were practicing later on, if you kept doing it, you would start to become able to investigate the energy which is flowing out of your eyes, okay? Because you're practicing tratak, which is the steadying of your vision. You'll find that if you steady your vision, your mind becomes steady. And if you do that every day, if you stared at the center every day for a few minutes, your mind would become very stabilized, and you could stabilize it where you want it to go. As you saw, there's a lot of movement in that Sri chakra. And if you stay centered, you see it leaping, you know? But then the ability to move past just the dot and go into the upward facing triangle, then the lower facing, then the upward. There are 5 pointing down and 4 pointing up in that diagram, but it is amazing because it is the quivering diamond at the base of all prana, which it is also called the amplitudahedron in science, which is a geometric shape, like the Sri Yantra, which is the base of quantum reality. Okay, it's a bunch of triangles. So anyway, never mind the amplitudahedron, just focus on the dot, then focus on the triangles increasing and then decreasing. It's something to do with your eyes. Your eyes will get stronger, but your mind will become more steady. And that's why we do it. Tratak is very helpful.
Very intense. Sounds very cool.
Yeah, it's easier than meditating sometimes, right?
Yeah. The next question is, can you give feedback on how sensitive to surroundings after meditation works for sensitive people?
I think everybody is sensitive, and if you find that you are overwhelmed by stimuli, I would think that meditation would give you the stomach to handle it. When all that breathing into the belly gives us stomach. Stomach means being able to handle the stress of stimulation, you know? And you also have a lot of your attention going inside you. So when you're good at breath awareness, your attention may seem to be looking outward, but a large percentage of your awareness is drawn inward where it is safe. So I don't think these practices are antithetical to being you know, sensitive, and I think it's good to do these things. Get some power to draw your attention within and be able to handle the shit you're in.
There is quite a few questions about breathing in and inhaling and exhaling and retention and and how this is supposed to feel. Is there a incorrect way or correct way as to breathing? For example, someone said that I have difficulty studying at the end of my exhalation. Is there something that I can do to work on that?
Wait, difficult to do what at the end of exhale?
Like studying, I guess, becoming steady.
Steady.
Steady or
so do you find that it's easier to hold your breath inward? Because people will tend to prefer one over the other. And so if it's better when you inhale and hold it in, and if neither of those calms your mind and it just fills you with doubt, put it aside. Just breathe into your ribs like we did before. So I don't recommend wrestling with these practices. I just don't. And if, you know, there might be other teachers that do. I don't. If it doesn't suit you after a few tries, do something else. You're going to be breathing anyway. Pay attention to it. Effectively, when you do these things with the breath, sipping it, holding it, shortening it, we'll do Bastrika next time. It does things to make the breath interesting. It does things to make it have more form, okay? So it compels the attention of the mind. That's what it's for. If you can focus on your breath without modifying it like that, just do that, babe.
Awesome. It's a good segue because you mentioned Bastrika, and someone just posted a comment about Bastrika. In Bastrika, do you use abdominal breathing or full breath?
So when I hear a question like that, there's some definition of abdominal and full that I'm not sure I understand. I'm sorry. Okay. I don't know. To me, they're both the same thing. I must be ignorant. I'm sure I am. I'm sure I am. There must be something that I do not know.
They clarified by saying full as in abdominal, thoracic, and clavicular.
Well, so the abdominal, thoracic, clavicular, you're talking about the three lobes of the lungs. And when you draw your diaphragm down, the lower lungs fill and the abdomen pushes out because your diaphragm is pushing the viscera. Then the thoracic is the rib cage region, and then breathing into the apices of the lungs, and they're much smaller up there, right? So, you know, that you might, I don't want you to get hurt. I don't want you to hurt the apex of the lungs there, but that kind of, I'm not sure what you want to know about it. Sometimes they call that three-part breathing. When you do Bastrika, you're not going to spend a lot of time filling up the lungs like that. You're really just working the abdominal muscle, moving it in and out, and it pulls it in and expels it. That's my experience.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
That's what I just said. It's too fast.
Yeah, too fast. So are there any other questions that I might have missed that anybody would like to put into the chat? I tried to combine some of the questions together about breathing, and I think Mary kind of went over how we should feel in breathing and exhaling and retention and stuff like that. So are there any other questions? Hold. Okay. Yeah, just questions coming in. Kind of, is there an optimal ration for, I think we kind of, is there an optimal ration for breath retention? Ratio, it's probably supposed to be ratio.
I don't do that. Not really. You know, it has to be spontaneous. you have to be aware that you've got the treasure of reality that you're holding in. That's all that matters, is how you're addressing it with your bhav, your feeling, to me, and then how your mind is experienced. Okay, if your mind is clutching onto ratios, that's not the state we're interested in.
And let's see, there was a question about if you could repost your question about the image. I probably missed that somewhere, Karen.
We'll do more Sri Yantra next time. You know,
Okay.
you're getting like a tasting menu, so
Mm-hmm.
we'll deepen it a little bit more. It's to be experienced, tasted, and then you learn about it. You know, in the ashram of my guru, we weren't allowed to read books about what we were experiencing. We were just allowed to have the experience, and later on you understood what was happening when you applied yourself to the yoga canon and saw.
Okay. And the last question, we'll probably address the video in the next session. It was just maybe like lighting. And then we had a question about, like, if I take a deep breath into my belly and my chest feels tight, is that normal?
Yes, and if you do it a few more times, your chest won't feel so tight, I believe. I think that you should explore. Breathe into your belly and examine that feeling in your chest. That's probably got good information for you. And it may be armoring, which we are discussing right now, that what we're doing with yogas, we'd like to take the armor off and have gravity be our ally. We don't need an armor when that's our ally.
Yep. And there was a question about the Mula Bandha. Does Mula Bandha does that cause the Kundalini to flow when you're doing the bandha or afterwards?
Both. So, you know, and again, when we say the Kundalini causing it to flow, it's the consciousness of the universe. So I rarely, would approach the Mula Bandha with, a mechanical idea, making it flow and making it, you can tell it what to do, but you can caress it and meaningfully. And when you do that, and with her grace, you will receive the awakening. But you need that attitude of reverence, I would say. I love it. Thank you so much, everybody.